Truth be told, every champion has felt it. Every president has felt it. Every king has felt it. Every lion has felt it. Every winner has felt it. Every soldier has felt it. Every victorious person has felt it. The urge to quit.
Crossroads, life's tolls, life goes. I gotta win. W my lockdown. You can't rewind.
Hey, how are you guys doing today? This is your host, Sonia of the Remember Who You Are 222 podcast. I'm here with my guest, Andrea. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. That video is epic. Absolutely. Love it. Love it, love it, love it.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely, in remembering who I am, I felt it was just fitting as far as like my journey. And, I feel like I've always been gifted with just pushing myself physically past my limits and past what people thought women were capable of. And
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Kind of have to go back to our roots to remember where we came from to move us forward. Absolutely.
Yeah. But okay, just to introduce Andrea a bit. So she is basically your host and guide to a journey of healing, faith, and humanity. As the founder of the Real and Raw movement and Press Play, Plan Life According to You, LLC, she helps individuals across the world reclaim their voice, rewrite their story, and rise no matter their past.
Yes.
So I know we've talked a couple times before in the past, but I definitely want our new listeners here to hear like your story and how you kind of came into your awakening or anything like that. I'll let you go ahead and tell your story.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are watching. You had the opportunity to be anywhere and you chose to be here. It's an honor, pleasure to be here. Yeah, I had that warrior mentality as well as a woman. My name, Andrea, actually means warrior, so it couldn't resonate much more better than being here with you today, Sonia. It's just been an amazing journey. So in a nutshell, overall, I was born during the cartel in Colombia, South America. And so the story was written that my parents made the ultimate sacrifice and put me up for adoption and sent me to the promised land of the America. And I was about 11 pounds at 11 months old. So that's a pound per month. Kind of crazy when you think about it, sending your child to the unknown and the uncertain. But I was welcomed with open arms in an unconditional, loving Italian, Irish American family. And although for me, as I was told, again, the story was written that I was a treasure to them, a gift, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, as they say, because I was a victim of bullying at every stage thereafter in my life outside of my home. So what developed and transcribed was that, as women, we have a very red pen in hands, our own worst critic of our own selves. But when I had stepped into the community of what I call Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, everybody looked like their parents. And I didn't. I remember in school, we did like a exercise of making our family tree. And as I was creating this project, none of my parents looked or my family members looked like me. They had different complexions, different features, and so forth. And I'll never forget at the age of 7, the students were like, how come you don't look like them? I said, no. I was adopted. I was a gift. And they said, wait a minute, you were adopted? And I said, yeah, my parents put me up for adoption and brought me to America. They sent me to America. And at that moment, kids could be cruel, and they were. And they said, if your parents didn't want you or love you, how could you love? And that shift, that program, that naysaying mentality took over where my emotions and thoughts were my masters as opposed to my messengers. And so that kind of trickled down at every stage of my life of being the masteress of failure and never fitting in, which I see as what you touch upon as what makes us different, makes us unique and authentic. We are our own fingerprint of the creator in our belief system. And it's okay to be different because that's how we learn from each other.
Yeah, that's no, definitely, because I feel like that's the thing that people don't realize is that even though we are all different and unique in our own ways, we're all connected at the same time. Like we, like you said, we're all cells in God's body. So
Right, yeah. Yeah, and I think it was so amazing when we connected. And I'll never forget, we were connecting and exchanging connections and videos and contacts. And then I had mentioned about changing our frequency, our vibrations and our energy. And that was just the launch pad over there when you were like, wait, spirituality, frequency,
yeah, I was like,
vibrations.
she's
You're like,
saying
we gotta connect. We gotta work more. And it's just been an amazing journey since then, because that's what I'm finding right now. The people that are gravitating to my circle, that I'm connecting with, that are on this journey, have the same mindset. And it's that release of invincibility, that release of, am I the only one? Is it just me? And then tapping into society's mentality of, am I crazy, or is this an actual thing that certain individuals, as I had done a show yesterday with someone, and they were just like, no, these are the light workers. These are the spiritual beings that are elevating to the next level of dimension, next level of intuition and tapping in, that are now gravitating to
for each
really
other.
raise the
Yeah.
vibration and educate those who are not ready, not prepared, or unaware completely. Because that was me. That 2015, I'm unplugged, but before then, I had that herd mentality. I had that mindset of the victimization. I had that ability and fear that I wasn't in control of my thoughts, that I didn't have a choice at that moment to make a decision. And when you unplug, it's fearful at first, because you're like, okay, well, where am I tapping into? What is real and what is surreal? But it's a release of freedom. Oh my gosh, I do have a choice to turn off the news. I do have a choice to put on this song. I do have a choice to connect with someone. And I just think that as we are going through each stage, we are attracting like-minded individuals.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It was funny that when we met, I had just started diving into to this stuff, and that's why when you said certain things, I was like, oh, even when you said the 11 pounds, what was it, 11 pounds?
11 pounds, 11 months old, 11, the
Yeah, and
angelic
11 months
numbers.
old. I was like 11. That's divine orchestration right there.
Yeah. And I've been being mindful of numbers. Like I said, I did a podcast last night, and I was telling the host, I was just like, yeah, the prominent numbers that continue to be in my life are 11, 22, and 28. And they were just like, yo, you better be careful. You better be aware of what those mean, because those are strong, significant numbers. I didn't get to do my research yet, y'all, but I'm going to look into what 28 and 22 mean. But 11 definitely is a new birth, a new beginning, and, a revelation. So absolutely.
Yeah, I actually had a guy on my podcast that was into numerology, and he had these whole calculations of things that was like, oh, 22, 22, 222, and like I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
So I know the universe is like, it's just all mathematical and geometrical shapes that some of us can't even fathom. I know we can tap into it if we want to. We just have to ask.
Right.
But
And we have to be open-minded. We
Mhm.
can't, we're not to be judgmental about it. We're not to be skeptical.
Mhm.
And when we open that plane, if you will, to
Mhm.
acceptance and knowledge and awareness,
Mhm.
it's something, once you do it, you can't
Mhm.
undo it.
Can't go back.
Now you see
Yeah.
it, you see it all the time.
Yeah.
So
So
that's been the journey that has been helpful for me. If
mhm.
I am what they don't like, doubtful
Mhm.
and self-doubt, but every now and then there'll be a sign, if I'm willing and cognizant of it, to be like, no,
Mhm.
you're on the right track, or your intuition will
Mhm.
trigger being like, I don't know if we should do this. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that intuition is huge. And I
Yeah.
feel like at least there was times in my life where I ignored my intuition.
Hmm.
And, the result of that was like a toxic relationship. And
Yeah.
then, for me, it was really getting out of that toxic relationship at the end of that toxic relationship that kind of woke me up and, you know, made me determined to get my life back together and then lead me on this healing journey.
Right.
But do you feel that there was like a something that kind of catalyzed your awakening to cause you to see things differently?
It's funny you mention that, because I had a sixth sense when I was younger. Like I had premonitions, I had intuitions,
Mm,
and whenever I connected with somebody or had an energy with somebody, I was like, wow, they've been through a lot. And it was probably my latter, like, the intuitions were definitely young age. I want to say as young as possibly 13, if I can recall.
mhm,
And then my latter years in college, I would be able to kind of connect with somebody and say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry what you've gone through. And I was able to
mm,
kind of recite their experience, and it was a little intimidating to
mm.
them. They're like, I don't even know you, but you
Like,
knew
what?
I was like, I went through this and all that. And then the premonition kind of came in thereafter, where I would know a song was coming on, or I would know if I had a lot of deja vu. And then
Mm,
it was probably just in the recent moments, months maybe, that my empathy
mm,
had increased immensely. I'll never forget, inauguration day. I'm unplugged, so I really
mhm,
am underground, if you will. No clue what's going on, just for protection of myself, because I know how powerful it can get. And I'll never forget, on inauguration day, I felt this pressure on my chest, and I was just like, oh my gosh. I reached out to one of my friends and I said, what happened around 8:30? They said, oh, that's when they declared who was president. And I felt for those older generations, I felt like Obi-Wan Kenobi. I said, there's a disturbance in the force. Like, I
no.
literally felt the world's concern, happiness,
Mm,
frustration, and fear. And I was just like, all right, this is a little too much. And I am dealing with that right now, because, I'm very particular with my words, but I know the strength and the high level of my ability to either heal someone or help someone, or actually have the idea or have the ability, if you will, to make great change in someone or something. And for me, my logical side, my conscious side, is a little intimidating. That
mm,
responsibility, that accountability. So I have to be mindful of my words, my actions, who I interact with, how I interact with them, controlling lessening my reaction and increasing my response, if that makes sense.
mhm. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I feel like I've become more of an observer than
Hmm.
an absorber.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Yeah, I might adopt that now.
Yeah. Because that's one thing. So one thing I do know from a kid, for me at least, is I have always been able to feel people's energy, but back then I
Mm,
didn't know what it was. Like,
right,
I
right.
didn't know. I just knew that like somebody would be sitting there thinking and they're deep in thought, and then I all of a sudden feel bad and I didn't
Yeah.
know why.
Yes,
But now I look
exactly.
back and I'm like, wow, like I really I have absorbed people's energy all my
Yeah.
life.
Mhm.
And I had to release a lot of that because I was carrying, things that weren't even mine.
Right, right. And then to your point, that's exactly what caused any ailments of not being well.
Mhm.
I it wasn't until I connected the dots backwards, as Steve Jobs talks about, where I would get sick at certain moments or around people, and I just didn't
Mm.
understand it. But that absorption was definitely a factor in my life. And I remember, I'll never forget, at around age 13, I had lost both of my paternal grandparents,
Mm.
and I didn't understand it. And I remember having this vision, let me be there, not them. Let me, you know, move forward. And I was just like, how could this be something to process or absorb at such a young age? And
Mhm.
then unfortunately, every year since then, I've attended, funerals, but I just wish that I was able to have more positive feelings and frequencies than
Mhm.
negative. And it really put in perspective, wow, this world is really hurting. This world
Mhm.
is really stuck, really lost, really not happy. Because I can have a conversation, like when we were preparing for today, I can have a conversation. I'm like, okay, I'm excited. We're still gonna go and be, and I felt the
Mhm.
energy, like
The
my chest
energy.
expand. I was like, yes, this is great. We're really gonna do it. And then I want more of those moments to
Mhm.
share with people rather than the latter.
Mhm. No, I understand that completely because I felt I had felt compelled to get back online and speak
Mhm.
when I had that other podcast. I was just doing the Instagram lives and stuff.
Right, right.
And it was really just to get me ready for this because
Mm,
once I like really had like a big awakening and like my eyes were open to a lot more things and perspectives,
hmm.
um I was like, oh, I need to really I made a post in the Need a Guest, it's like Need a Guest on
Yes,
Facebook
yes.
group, and it was for this podcast, and I was just testing it out because I was just gonna start a new podcast,
Right, right.
and it like flooded.
Hmm.
It was like
Yeah.
so many people wanted to be on it, and I was just like, wow, I need to go legit now.
Yes,
So,
yes, absolutely. Yeah,
and ever
yeah.
since then, honestly, the people that I've spoken to on here has just been like
Mhm.
amazing energy, and
Yeah,
some people I've still kept in touch with, and
right. And it's good.
it's
It's humbling to know that there's more people out there, and the wider the circle and the
mhm,
network, the higher the vibration,
mhm,
because if there's more individuals who have the optimistic viewpoint and able to change their channels, what I call it in my line of work, change their frequency
mhm,
and make it understand that they have a chance and a choice to do something about it, then we can switch the pendulum and make
mhm,
this world a better place.
mhm. Yeah, I agree 100%. I
Yeah.
definitely believe that um, we are, those of us that are on this side of consciousness, I feel like we are working towards that
Yeah.
5D Earth, and
Yes.
you know,
I cannot wait.
and right, and it's like
Yeah.
I feel like it's not far away. We're working towards it, and it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I believe in this lifetime.
Yeah. I'm wishing, to be honest, it's a little bit exciting but nervous at the same time, because some of the messages that I've received was just like, it's kind of like sifting out people
Mm,
and ideas. So that's a little concerning, because you look at your community, you look at your history, your family and your friends and everything, you're like, I love them. Are they gonna make it?
yeah, that is always the question. Like,
You
wait,
know
are
what I
they
mean?
coming with?
Yeah, are they gonna come with us or not? And it's funny that we're talking about this, because like I said the other day to a couple of people within this last week, I just had this, and I have to share it. I just had this amazing ascension in my dream, where I was actually levitating, and I was lying down and I was levitating, and it
Mhm.
was like stars, golden stars were kind of help raising me up.
Mm.
And then I was at my existing childhood home,
Mm.
and it was crazy. Like I walked out of the home into this like bright, beautiful environment. But what
Mhm.
was crazy is some people were walking opposite to me in the darkness. And I was
Mm.
just like, oh, fortunately, I guess for some reason, I didn't see who they were,
Yeah.
but I was just like, oh, you know, and I
Mhm.
was told about this, you know, for those out there, you know, not to kind of scare you, but like the precision of the equinox and, you know, the rays of elevation, the light workers and the spiritual beings
Mhm.
and everything. If you're into that, I'm sure that's your audience, but
Mhm.
it's just kind of coming to fruition now.
Mhm.
And the more signs, the more energy, the more vibrations, and the more conversations such as this, I
Mhm.
definitely have faith that everything's going to work for the right people. And
Mhm.
those who are ready and willing to receive help are going to get it
Mhm.
finally. And
Mhm.
those who aren't ready and those who are still stuck, I wish the best,
Mhm.
whatever that happens for them, you know, because I was there. I was there years ago. I was
Mhm.
in a mindset and a lifestyle of vengeance. I was in a mindset set of lone wolf. At times
Mhm.
I go back there every now and again. I'm human, you know, as well as that mindset of, you know, why am I doing 2 steps forward and 10 steps back?
Mhm.
What's the reason, you know?
Mhm.
So yeah, that's kind of been what's been going on, you know.
Yeah. And that's very understanding to like wonder too, is like, are some of them, gonna come, or I do feel like what I've realized in my just in raising my vibration, I feel like I didn't even have to say anything.
Mhm,
I was just doing my thing online, and like the people that I had been around
mhm.
were just like, I guess my energy was that strong to where
Yeah.
the people around me were changing too, and they were
Right.
like, they were just nicer, more calmer.
Yeah.
And then even
Yeah.
my friend she started asking me more questions about things.
Mm. Yeah.
And so I do feel like it's not for everybody. I feel like there are certain people, like I mean, we can say like the psychopaths, the sociopaths, and like narcissists. They might
They're done. They're hurt.
yeah.
They're still burned, you know. They're
Mhm.
still, you know, I was a bullied and abused victim on all chords.
Mhm.
But when I had the epiphany that do I want to stay here?
Yeah.
Like, do I want to really
Right.
live this life? And I think that's ground zero when you start asking those questions, as you
Mhm.
mentioned. When you start asking questions, that's when I believe the intuition and the frequency within gets ignited.
Mhm.
Because a lot of us right now in this day and age are settling or just following the herd mentality. And so,
Mhm.
you know, that's why I really believe in my mantra, follow your heart, not
Mhm.
the herd, what you hear, or the masses, or the hurt, because it'll take you down a downward spiral if you let it,
Mhm.
and you just don't have the ability, the energy, or the willingness to be accountable and responsible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I definitely yeah, I see things different now as far as that too, where it's like, yeah, I empathize because I know that they're holding so much
Hmm.
hurt and pain that's why they are the way that they are.
Right.
So I
And I
definitely
don't think people, oh, pardon me, I
Mhm.
don't think people realize the process of grief. And I don't mean grief has to be a loss of a loved one. Grief can be a loss of a pet, of a family member, of a job, of a partner, or
Mhm.
even your self identity, because all of those I went through.
Mhm.
And we think of grief as depressed, sadness, and isolation. But once you go even further, it
Mhm.
becomes anger, isolation, and
Mhm.
vengeance. And I think what, to your point, again, what people need to understand, and I talk about it in my journey, is it will take power of toxicity over you, not only with your environment and relationships, but on the medical component in your body and your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I lost my mother, I was devastated. I was just like, another mother you're taking first? I don't even know my first mother.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're taking my biological. Now you're taking my adoptive mother. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how dare you? Now I'm not left with no one. My father
Mm-hmm.
is available, but he was the co-breadwinner in the family, so he kind of wasn't available
Mm-hmm.
emotionally and mentally as he wanted to be in the early stages of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so at first I was sad, and then I was like angered. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget I was connecting with someone, and they're just like, okay, you say you forgive, and are you feeling all right? And I actually compelled and composed a forgiveness package that I provide to people. And then I had to add an addendum to it, not only the hurt, the sorrow, the emotional attachment, but have you dealt with the anger? And I'll
Mm-hmm.
never forget doing that component with someone who was guiding me through it. And they said, are you in your house alone? And at that time I was. They said, if you do this, you need to have somebody like a lifeline call or somebody as you go through it. And
Mm-hmm.
Sonia, I'll never forget doing this exercise. And luckily enough and graciously enough, I had a friend on the phone, and I was just like, oh my gosh, now I know the power of emotions when they become your master and not your message.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like I wanted to throw things, I wanted to scream, I wanted to like I'm even like a robin expanding my chest right now because I know
Mm-hmm.
how toxic it was, that I was under the false belief that loss and grief was just sadness and loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
Then it turns into anger if it's not dealt with. So, to those listening today, if you or someone you know going through grief of loss, again, it doesn't just have to solely be a family member, somebody crossing over. It could be a job, it could be your identity, your connection with your spouse or relationship, which is existing right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's different levels of grief. But what my personal experience is, be mindful when it gets to rock bottom and it's anger, because it could
Mm-hmm.
be very toxic, not only to those around you, but to yourself and medically, because that's what propelled me
Mm-hmm.
into fighting for my life just shy of 10 years of my mom's passing
Mm-hmm.
in the hospital. Yeah.
Okay. And so what do you feel helped you heal from all of that? Was it just like, do you feel like it was a lot of a mental and emotional healing that you did to get physically better?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. You know, I had to tap in, like I said, when I lost my mother initially in the beginning stages, it was difficult for me because I didn't know how to cope. You
Mm-hmm.
know, here's somebody I've invested every single thing of my life into
Mm-hmm.
one person. Now I'm not going to replace her,
Mm-hmm.
but how do I reopen those stories or wounds to somebody who's not really familiar with them?
Mm-hmm.
And so, as I had mentioned, my mother passed in 2007, and then it was 2016, like I said, just shy of a decade of her passing, that I studied The Secret, you know, the amazing
Mm-hmm.
secret, which I applied. I listened to Jason Stevenson's, guided meditations. And because for 2 years post her passing, I was dedicating my entire life revolved to going to her gravesite.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived about an hour plus from her gravesite, whether it was before work, after work, sleet, storms, snow,
Mm-hmm.
state of emergencies, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to get that cycle broken when a family member said, Andrea, she's not there anymore. She's here in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to, come to awareness that I was just going through the emotions. And as I tapped into the secret, as I was in the hospital bed, that fighting for my life, I remember Bob Proctor's,
Mhm.
rest in peace, saying, dis-ease cannot withstand a healthy, positive emotional mindset.
Mhm.
Paraphrase. And I got the call from a loved one, and they were like, "This is not the life you're to lead. We need you. We're home at the family." And it was just that moment of someone reassuring, validating that this is all self-induced. And that's a jagged
Mhm.
pill to swallow. When
Mhm.
you connect the dots back, look at all of your ailments, hospitalizations, and conditions, all because you
Mhm.
weren't dealing with the root cause. And
Mhm.
so I'll never forget that really changed my whole life. And to this day, I have a clean bill of health and I'm still here.
Mhm.
It's amazing of the power of the muscle of the mind.
Mhm.
We take it for granted. We're like, oh, they're just the thoughts. But when
Yeah.
reality, they're really the frequencies, the kind of,
Yeah.
pilot to everything that we do. And you can see an example of it as a young kid. You're on the playground and stuff. It's, I have to go to the bathroom. Well, now you have three more kids that have to go to
Yeah,
the
to
bathroom. You
go.
know what I mean? It's the thoughts that are in your minds that matter. It's not a
Yeah.
matter of that. So yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely true. It's crazy how the power of the mind really is. And it takes,
Yeah.
I mean, it took me, I know we've gone through different, I guess different timelines. And now it's like this great awakening. So things are speeding
Yeah.
up a bit more.
Right.
I definitely feel like it took me a long time to realize that, and I had always kind of been in my 20s, even I started getting my mind to the point to where I know I was only going to keep certain people around me,
Right.
positive, good vibes. I want good
Mm-hmm.
vibes around me.
Yeah.
But, to really think how deeply thoughts really do affect you as far as like, especially what you think about yourself.
Oh yes.
And so, like, I feel like it really took me a while to really realize that. And then once I started speaking to myself a
Right.
lot better and truly loving myself, because I didn't even know, I had heard the word like, oh, love yourself, or the
Mm-hmm.
phrase love yourself.
Right.
It's like I didn't really know what that meant.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I'm at. I'm learning that now. And I believe each person, and I want to kind of clarify this as you brought up a good point. Dreams don't have deadlines, they have destinations, and we're all on a different chapter in our
Mhm.
lives. So don't get frustrated if it's not moving to your liking because it's already done for you. It's just a
Mhm.
matter of you stepping into it. Like if the path is already paved for you,
Mhm.
but we can always pivot or change that path with a negative thought.
Mhm.
And what I loved what you said is that, you know, time is speeding up. I literally, within the last month or two, I don't even know what day, time, or hour we're in. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, it's going so fast.
Mhm.
And I know they say when you're younger, time flies because you're having fun, but this is a bit extreme because I'm just like, wow, we're already in the middle of the year. And it's
Mhm.
just like, it kind of puts in perspective
Mhm.
and I want to kind of put this in a light term. We don't have a lot of time,
Yeah.
but in one respect, again, it's looking at the glass half empty and half full. It's like,
Mhm.
I believe that really in our 30s to 60s is where we're going to really thrive, because the first 30 years of our lives, we're still learning, we're still adapting, we're still adjusting. And it's that 30 to 50 where we're kind of reprogramming and resetting what we've gotten to where our liking is, if we have the energy and motivation to do that. And then it's just like, and then you're kind of like, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Like, okay, now I figured it out. Oh my gosh, I really only have X amount of years, to make this happen,
Mhm.
you know. But yeah, time is flying because and it's amazing with the mind because I never knew this was a thing. So when the world changed in 2020, I'll never forget the call from my employer that is no longer existent at the time saying, all right, well, this is your last day. Tomorrow don't come in, but your official on paper day is tomorrow. And that was March 17th, Wednesday, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since that day, you can ask anyone. I guess subconsciously forget when Wednesday is. Literally. And it's crazy, but it's because of that process that
Mm-hmm.
was not a good experience. So I'll either block it or just dismiss it completely. And I think
Mm,
that's what the beauty of is what you're bringing to the table is that ability to reflect, that ability
mhm,
to process, that ability to take a few moments and kind of rehash your day, your week, your month, or your milestone and achievement to say, you know
mhm,
what, I have achieved it. Let me keep on going.
mhm. Yeah, I definitely man, it's been crazy. I feel like 2025 for me at least has been since January, everything I've gotten so many like downloads and learned so much information in such a short
Right.
amount of time
Yeah.
that that's where it's like, man, I've been able to do things that, I haven't done in years
Right.
in
Yeah.
just this, this past 5 months.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's
And
crazy.
so,
You
um,
know?
yeah, it's like I wrote a whole book in a month pretty much. I'm almost done
Mhm.
with it, but I had to take a break
Excellent.
because I started doing the podcast, and
Right.
I had even overflowed myself in the month of April with the podcast. And so I had to like
Yeah.
learn how to even slow down and,
Right.
um, spread things out so that I can stay aligned, because
Yeah.
I'm starting to learn too that all that hustle mentality is the old way of doing things. And
Right.
the right
Yeah.
way is to align and
Right.
do what makes you happy. Do what you love every day. Don't be exhausting yourself, and things just
Yeah.
fall into place.
No, that's a great point because I've dismissed multitasking completely
Mm,
because I'm not giving 100%. If I'm
mm,
multitasking, I could be talking to you in between. I could be texting, looking at this, doing
mm,
that. And it's not fair or respectful to you, but let alone
mhm,
myself.
mhm,
And I think that's what the distractions of the world are doing is everything
mm,
is now at our fingertips. You have
mhm,
access to more people than you've ever had across the
mhm.
world, across the borders and waters. And the attention span has went from an hour to maybe 15 seconds at best. If you're lucky,
Yeah,
maybe 3 minutes.
that's
And
true.
it's just like, what is happening? So
Mhm,
rather than valuable content, it's what's the immediate fix, what's the immediate solution. And we're not even looking at that because we're focusing on what the problem is as getting to the root cause of what led you
mhm,
or brought upon the problem. And so I had a press pause. I went on hiatus. Well, first of all, the universe decided that I was going and grinding and not being busy as opposed to productive. So last
mm,
summer, for like 3 to 6 months, I had no operating system. I was like, well,
mm.
this is not good. My laptop, my devices didn't
Everything.
work. And I was just like, all right, I get you. This is a sign.
Yeah.
You hit me with my health. And now I've complied to that of a healthy mentality and lifestyle. Now you're gonna, Andre, you're not slowing down, so let's just interrupt your
Mm,
operating system. And so what
mhm,
I'm doing now is avoiding competition, avoiding comparison, as you
mhm.
mentioned, doing what I love, and there's no rush for things.
Yeah,
There's
it's
a
no
time
rush.
for everything, and you decide if you're not feeling up to do a podcast today,
Mhm,
you can reschedule. Yes,
mhm,
tomorrow, for those out there, tomorrow isn't guaranteed, but
mhm,
why would you shift your energy to something that you are not enjoying just for the
mhm,
factor of a checklist as opposed to embracing something that you enjoy to give
mhm,
you the momentum and motivation to do more? And that's
mhm,
what I've learned. Everybody has 24 hours in the day, regardless of where you live. It's
mhm,
how you're utilizing them.
Mhm.
And if you wake up and you have a positive mentality and all of a sudden you get stuck in traffic, all of a sudden you get a call with bad news, change your channel and say, you know what? I thought I was in the mood today, but it shifted me a bit. Let me name the emotion that I have right now.
Mhm.
Know it, give it power. All right, I'm angry. Let me ride this out and then shift my channel to do something else. If I don't
Mhm.
get that 3 checklist to do list done, at least I've got one,
Mhm.
because we're so hard on ourselves. And that's
Yeah.
not how life is supposed to be.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely true, and I think we definitely we take life too serious.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. Dr. Scott, he said that
Yes.
you're in his group. So I had him on my podcast, and he was telling me how my son, because my son came into the picture and stuff because I had him that day.
Right.
And he was like, your son is one of those kids that, and I kind of knew it. Like, I kind of knew he was like something special, but he
Right.
said he's one of those kids that have come to the earth to show people what life is really about. This
Right.
reality is just a joke to him. Everything's going to be funny and laughing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
he literally laughs all the time. And even when I get upset at him, he laughs at me.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
awesome.
he's been teaching me, like, I've been having to, you know, to calm myself down, because I'm just like, okay, if he's triggering me, that's something in me.
Right.
And
And we're a
so,
reflection of each other, you
yeah.
know?
And so I've actually learned to let loose more. And like, if he spills water on the bed and he's laughing and jumping in it, I just start playing with it too. Because
Yeah.
instead of getting
Yeah.
upset that he
Yeah.
made a mess, I just go with it now.
Yeah, and that's what I'm learning too, you know. And we had this conversation, and I can see it in you as well. You know, as
Mhm.
women, we want to control everything, we want to
Mm.
nurture, we want to kind of dictate what happens. And in my family, you know, my nicknames are the CIA because I get things done, but very particular. But on
Mhm.
the other side, it's Andrea, type triple A personality.
Oh,
Everything has to be in alignment, everything has to be in order, everything has to be planned. Like, I plan out everything for like a month or 3 months in advance, and I'm just like, that's not living in the moment.
yeah,
And then
that's
I get
true.
frustrated if it doesn't go the way it
As
was
planned.
scheduled.
Yeah.
So I'm adopting that, and I'm just kind of doing the 3-second mode. All right, it's not
Yeah.
that serious. And I'll never forget one of the mentors that I've had in my life. I was working for them, and they were of great stature, and she was just like, "Did somebody die? No. Did somebody, get hurt? No. Is it, did you lose money, or is somebody going to get arrested or go to jail?" I said, "No." Then she's like, "All
Mhm.
right, it's not that serious." And I was just like, "How could you?"
Yeah.
I would be like, "How but but it didn't get, and she's like, "No, it's fine. Don't worry, it's
Mhm.
not that serious." So I too am adopting that quality of
Yeah.
being in the moment and
Mhm.
having fun more, because I don't want to be that person
Mhm.
woulda, coulda, shoulda. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I think that's really what certain youth are
Mhm.
here helping us achieve.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I definitely believe that these emotions are unnecessary. It's like we
Yeah.
get upset for things that don't go our way, but
Right. Yeah.
that's why my reactions to things are so different now than they used to be. Like,
Right.
I feel like in the
I'm getting
last
there.
5 months, I've really been able to and honestly, I will say that my toxic narcissistic ex actually helped me get
Yeah.
to this point, because he was pushing so hard and trying so hard to get reactions out of me
Right.
that I literally had to just stop caring about everything, material
Yeah.
things, my own credit. Like,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was deep. And
Right.
so I actually had to really like be thankful that happened to me, because it actually brought me to where I'm at now. And I feel
Right.
so much more like, just like, whew, like
Yeah.
things will
A
happen
weight is
and
lifted.
it doesn't,
Yeah.
yeah. And nothing matters anymore. Like,
Right. Yeah. It's crazy. And I believe that's, what they say, faith untested can't be trusted, because they put, I believe, the belief system and the universe and you whatever are leaning towards, they're going to put something in your path. You sure you want to do this?
Yeah.
Or you haven't learned this lesson yet?
They're gonna
Let
test
me
you.
let me
Yeah.
let me do it again. Let me do it again. And each time
Mm-hmm.
it gets a little bit more intense. And
Mm-hmm.
then that's when you have to say, oh, okay, I got it. I did a webinar the other day, and it was talking about tapping into human beings are the only creatures that don't learn from their lessons the
Mm.
first time, and I made the
Wow.
analogy of like dogs. A dog will be walking with his or her master, and if they're not paying attention to how springy they are and they step in water, like, oh, they retract their paw and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, next time I'm going to walk around it. What do?
Mm-hmm.
Step in it. Oh man, step in it. Oh man.
Yeah.
It's like, how many times do we have
How
to
many
get
times
burned until it's like,
we
that's
learn the
hot,
lesson?
Andrea.
Yeah.
You don't want to touch that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is an experience, I will say. And I've had people say, especially one person that I'm close with, we meet every couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just like, where I was just, prim and proper and always looking at my watch and focusing on this. And we were together and they were like, oh, okay, we're going to close. I'll see you, whatever the date was. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, you have to be back for to take care of your situation. I was like, oh, and they're like, I'm so happy you are learning to let your guard down, because it was
Mm-hmm.
like working with this authoritative individual who was focusing on numbers,
Mm-hmm.
results and so forth, to actually being in the moment and enjoying.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like I mentioned before, it's just like, why was I choosing this for so long?
Uh-huh.
So long. I could have
Right.
learned this and now I'm learning it now. But like I said, there's a time and space and a reason for it. And it's just the beauty of it when you tap into that ability to, nothing matters, not in a negative,
Yeah.
narcissistic or not caring way, but it's not that serious.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at that and have fun, like,
Mm-hmm.
my business, press play, plan life according to you. When you play in life, it's so much more fun. It's so much more
Yeah.
exhilarating. And that's what you want. Be infectious with love, not toxic with hate and frustration.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I always have to remind myself with my son
Yeah.
but it like just my trigger and getting frustrated always reminds me like, oh wait, like what am I?
Yeah, what is happening? What's really going
Yeah,
on? Like you get
and
frustrated at
so
traffic. No, 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 no. It's not traffic. It's
yeah,
something you haven't dealt with. And then that's what I say. If you haven't faced your past will continue to chase you. And then there will be an innocent bystander that will be the recipient of it. And
hmm,
unfortunately, that's our loved ones, our family members, our coworkers, and
yeah,
people we have relationships because we haven't dealt with it.
hmm,
You know.
um, yeah. Thanks. So I don't want to keep you. I know we've been talking for a while now, but
Yeah,
so what? I guess if you could say, I'll ask like a closing wisdom question, and then
sure.
I'll definitely have you back eventually because I feel like we have that,
Excellent. Yeah, no, likewise.
But my question that I've asked everybody so far has been like, if you could tell our listeners of one truth about our divinity that you found, what would that truth be?
Excellent question. We all deal with things. We all
Mhm.
have mistakes where nobody's perfect. You find me somebody perfect, then we'll talk. But when we look at our lives, know this: anything that you've gone through in life, any adversity, gives you the opportunity and the certification and ability to help others achieve it too. What do I
Mhm.
mean by that? If you have experienced drug abuse, abusive relationships, not low self esteem, any vice that you've encountered at any chapter in your life and you've overcome it and you're still here and watching us right now,
Mhm.
That is your call. Like that is the beauty and gift that you can take away and help others achieve it too.
Mhm.
I've been a victim of abuse and bullying. I've been a victim of mentality of self-doubt, false limiting beliefs. But because I've overcome it and still going through it, those are the tools in my toolbox that I can help you overcome it too and know that you're not alone.
Hmm. I love that. I definitely believe that the things we've been through are what we are literally here to help others through.
Right.
So that's something that I feel I've been called to lately is basically helping people elevate themselves
Right.
through any like divorce or custody case that they're going to have with a narcissist, because
Mm.
even though people tend to throw that word around, it's very real that they are prevalent. Like I
Mm.
think 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 relationships has like a toxic narcissistic individual.
Mm.
And so more people are dealing with it than we think. And people
Right.
need help to like raise their vibration to basically just not even be a part. That's not even a part of their game anymore.
Right. And it's and to kind of put it into perspective, it's not your fault. It's a reflection of what they've not managed, overcome, or dealt with.
Mhm,
But it is your responsibility to deflect it and say,
mhm,
I'm worthy and better.
mhm,
They're not ready to be helping of themselves if I've offered it, or
mhm,
you have to meet them where they're at and then give grace to yourself and forgive
mhm.
yourself to say, I'm going to move on from this,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
you know? Yeah.
Um, yeah, well, I definitely, I'm grateful that you came on to the show today, and I'm excited
Yes.
to, have you. And just so the listeners know where to find you if they want to.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, you can find me right here. AndreaMasons.com is my website. My social media handles: LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And for your opportunity to connect with me or see what I have available, let's have a chat. Email me at am.pressplay@yahoo.com and put in Sonia so I know where you came from, so we can connect and I can provide you a gift. Thank you so much.
Hmm. Awesome. Okay, and then I'll also put all that in the description on my YouTube channel as well.
Excellent.
So we will end it there for today. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.